welcome to this week's episode of TRUUU Podcast. I'm your host, Alex.
And I'm your host, Drea.
And today we're going to be talking about one of our most beloved movie franchises, even though, you know, it's kind of complicated feelings now, but you still choose to love it, right? Because it's more than just about one particular person. It takes a village to make a movie. So we'll get into that later. You'll understand that comment later. But anyway, so we're going to start out how we usually do nowadays, which is by doing our week updates. So we particularly this week have quite a bit to talk about, I feel like, as far as updates go. So I feel like just rip off the Band-Aid, Dre, go for it. How has your week been?
My week has been grand, Alex. Before I get to the nitty-gritty of big things happening in my past week, because I feel like you can vibe off of it too, because it's a big thing that happened in your past week. I'm going to give an update to my sister's situation.
Oh, right, yeah.
That we keep on going back and forth with about her house. Okay, so here's the situation. If you guys haven't been listening to our past podcast. So my sister is in the process of purchasing a home right now. And she was really hoping to get one in San Dimas, which is a city close by. And they were taking forever to get back to her. And so she ended up putting in another offer in another house in San Dimas, another offer in a house in Laverne, and one in Upland. And so the second house in San Dimas immediately rejected her, like didn't even like counter, nothing. They were like, nope. And she was like, okay, fine. And then the house in Upland ended up going for over $100,000 more than the asking price. So like they were asking $800,000 for the house, and like somebody put an offer for like $915,000. And my sister's like, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
So she didn't get that one. And then the Laverne one, I don't know what happened. I think they also got like a really high offer. And then the San Dimas one had still not gotten back to her. The original one had still not gotten back to her. And she's like, dude, literally, like, I'm not going to have a house, right? And so then that day, she was on her phone at work and she saw that this house that we had taken her to see prior to her house being sold that she had liked. So, okay, so before she had gotten her house, like an offer on it, we had just been casually taking them to see a few houses, like, hey, let's just start seeing what's out there, da, 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 da. But like, you know, everything with the market being the way it is right now, like it was just flying off the shelves, you know? So the second it went on the market, within like the weekend, it was already in contract with someone, right? So when we showed her that house, immediately had gone into escrow. And so fast forward to when this happened, like last week, and she's looking at it, it was back on the market. So she was like, what's the deal here? So then she told Aaron, and Aaron immediately like called the agent. He was like, hey, like, what's the deal? Like, is it still active? And he was like, yeah, man, like you're the first person to reach out to me from putting this back on the market. And honestly, like, we don't even want to deal with like all the headache of putting it back on and having people show it and da da da. So he's like, so if your buyers can just match the price that we were at with the prior people who fell out of contract with them, you guys can have it. And so Aaron's like, yeah, we'll take it. So then they went into escrow with his house. Right. And then, which was really good, because then the next day, San Dimas was like, we reject your offer. So it all worked out. And the funny thing is that this house is like 5 houses away from another house that we had purchased with another client, like literally the same street. And that client is my cousin.
Oh, that's cool though.
Yeah, so like Sarah's older sister, we had bought them this house on this street, and like 5 houses down is the house that Danielle's going to move into.
Well, that's convenient and cool.
Yeah, exactly. So my dad's just like, all right, I can carpool with Al, his brother. And I'm like, oh my God. The only downside to it is it's in freaking Rancho.
Oh, it's that one that you showed me?
Which one did I show you?
I don't know. It was one in Rancho that looked really nice.
No, not the one with the movie theater.
Oh.
No, not that one.
That would have been cool though.
I know. No, this one's really nice too though, but no movie theater. But it's really big. It's really pretty. I'll show you later. But anyway,
they're even farther away.
I know. I was like, God dang it.
They're already in Upland and now they've gone even farther.
I know. I was so against her getting the Upland house because I was like, I don't want you to live far. And then they got one in Rancho, and I was like, God dang it. But it's fine because she's closer to like Paulette and her friends. So it's a sacrifice I'll have to take.
Where's
but anyway,
Paulette at?
She lives in Fontana.
What? Well, I didn't know that one either. I kind of just assumed that she was like relatively close enough to like where Danielle lives.
She used to, like, they used to live in Upland at Kendall's house, but then Chris and Paulette bought a house, and so their house is in Fontana. And so then now Leah's going to move into Danielle's house, and then Ricky is going to move into Paulette's house.
They're so funny how they're just like, how
like
they just move
switching.
between houses that way.
I know.
Which is
Ridiculous.
fine. Obviously, they're all good friends, which is great. So it works out for everyone, but it's just so funny to me. I don't know what this is.
Yeah. But anyway, I'll have to send you pictures of it or like show
Yeah.
you. It's really pretty. But anyways, so that's the update on Danielle. And then here's the big update, drum roll, that we've been talking about for like the past 3 weeks, I feel like. We finally had my birthday.
Yeah.
We finally had my birthday party that is long awaited. The 2000s themed birthday party that we keep on talking about. And let me tell you guys, it did not disappoint.
No,
Every single person's outfit was outrageous, like literally the most outrageous thing, especially the boys. Like I feel like,
yeah,
I know that we had mentioned like, oh, like I know the girls will go out, but like I wonder if the guys will dress up. The guys' outfits were probably funnier than the girls' outfits.
oh, like Aaron's for sure.
Yeah.
I was dying with Aaron's outfit.
Oh my God. I was dying with Chris Taylor's outfit. He was like in a full-on like Guy Fieri shirt and like,
Yeah.
oh God, it's so good. But yeah, so like it was really fun. It was like a little bit too much fun because I feel like all of us were so socially deprived that like we all really let loose. And then like the next morning, we were gonna go to brunch and my sister, long story. But anyways,
Okay.
I was sleeping and then my sister calls me to wake me up to be like, hey, let's go to brunch. And I literally like wake up from my slumber, like dazed, grab my phone and I go to like answer and I'm like, hello. And I had to be like, like the nastiest noise to clear my throat. I was like, hello. And my sister's like, are you fine? Like, no. But like apparently that's like literally how everyone woke up. Like everyone woke up with such a raspy throat from like talking and like screaming so much, which is good, but I was dying.
I can, because I'm sure that I woke up in a lot better way than most people did that day. However, I did have to clear my throat a little bit because I felt like I just had burnt out my voice so much from talking and then talking loud.
That was definitely, I think that was definitely like the general consensus. Like everyone was just like, my throat is literal sandpaper. But then we ended up going to brunch afterwards and we went to the Broken Yoke in Glendora and the wait was over 70 minutes.
Oh yeah.
Like, we didn't eat until 1 p.m. We went for brunch and we ate at 1 p.m.
Oh, that's amazing.
Okay. But yeah, like you said, I'm sure you had a much better morning than the rest of us because let me tell you. So when Danielle called me and she was like, hey, we're going to brunch, she was like, are you coming? And I was like, go without me. I'm not going to make it. And she was like, okay, fine. So she hangs up and then I get up and I start like moving and drinking water and I'm like, okay, I'm fine. So then I text her back. I'm like, okay, like I can go, like it's fine. And so she's like, okay. And then I guess like she had called Paulette. Oh no. So Paulette left her phone at my house. And so I was like, so she called Leah or Chris, I forget what, but she calls somebody and she's like, hey, are you guys going to go to brunch? And then Chris, Paulette's husband, is like, no, I'm dying. And so they're just like, oh, okay, I guess we're not going. And then they hang up. And then like 5 minutes later, he texts them. He's like, okay, I can go. And so they're just like, oh my God, with both of you. And so Danielle was making this joke that's just like, they have risen. This is so funny. Yeah, it was a good time. I definitely am so happy we did it. But I gotta say, I feel like I didn't have a weekend because I'm just so tired. Like there was no rest. There was zero rest. It was just pain.
Well, there's a lot of good stuff in there too, though.
You're right.
I mean, you had the most impressive assortment of 2000 snacks. It was the most outrageous thing ever. Like, because my mom, I goes, of course, my parents asked about the party, the next day because we, talked and whatever.
Yeah.
And my mom had forgotten, I think, for a second that the party was themed. So when I started listing out all the snacks that you had there, she's just kind of like, what is this, a kid's party? So to clarify for you guys, so here's what we had at this party. So there were like those little lunch meat Lunchables. There were 2 different kinds of Rice Krispie treats. So there was the birthday cake one and the Oreo one. There were Gushers, fruit roll-ups, both the roll actual, like, the string one almost kind of, and then like the longer flatter rolls.
The fruit by the foot.
Yeah, those. And then also like assorted chips and whatever. And you also got Capri Sun and Kool-Aid jammers, which I'd be surprised if anyone at that party actually drank either one of those.
I know. I'm like, dang it, you guys. Probably because it was so far down in the cooler. No one even saw it.
It was below everything else.
Whoops. I should have planned for that better, but that's life, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, were you there when I was telling this story? Or this might have been at brunch, but I had gone, maybe I did. I don't know. I'll tell the podcast. So I had gone to Target that morning to get a few supplies, like, like the goodies or whatever.
Oh yeah, you didn't tell me the story.
Okay, I didn't tell you. So I was buying like crazy straws, like lip smackers, like all these different like little like funsy things to like go with the 2000s theme. And so the guy who's checking me out at the cash register, he's just like, "Oh, like how's your day going?" Da, da, da. And I'm just like, "Oh, it's going well. I'm just getting ready for a birthday party." And he's like looking at the stuff and going like, "Oh, that's cool. How old is the kid?" And I was like, 27.
It's me.
I was like, "It's a themed party. Don't judge me." It was so funny. But anyway, okay, well, tell us from your perspective, Alex. How was your week? How was the party?
So my week was good. I got my, like, I got my first vaccine shot and was like, had a fever from that night until Saturday morning.
Yeah.
It was pretty real.
Blows.
Yeah. But then I revived in time for your party, which was good.
That would have sucked if you didn't.
I know, because like my parents were asking me about it. They're like, "Are you going to go if you're not feeling well?" I'm just like, it's not like, I'm actually like infectious or sick with anything.
Right, yeah.
Because of that whole thing. So I'm just like, it's not like I'm a danger to everyone. But I do understand what you mean of not wanting to exacerbate anything. But I'm just kind of like, literally, we've been preparing for this for so long. We've been talking about it for so long. I bought an outfit for this. I can't just not go.
Yeah.
But luckily, it did pass by the time that I did go to help you set up. I will say that I broke 3 nails moving those chairs.
Did you? Oh, no.
Two of them were chips. And then one of them, like, you could see, like, the video people you could see, like, it's completely to the tip. But anyway.
That sucks.
It happens.
Welcome to my life. I don't have pretty nails.
Nails grow back, so it's fine. But anyway, so it was a lot of fun at the party. I think what was like one of the funniest things to me is that as the night went on and as people got like more, friendly and I guess truthful with their opinions or whatever, like everyone, because like the whole like aesthetic for the girls is like definitely a certain thing. And I felt like my outfit was just like a little bit different part of the 2000s than everyone else.
Yeah.
But like everyone was coming up to me and they're just like, "Man, Alex, yours is like the truest outfit for the 2000s. Like that is exactly what I looked like back then. Like that outfit was so on point."
You know why that's the thing? So I feel like all of us dressed like how you came in the 2000s, but the way that we all dressed for my party was how we wished we dressed.
Right.
Like, I feel like yours was the like, "Oh yeah, that's how we actually looked."
Yeah.
Like now we're just cuter.
Yeah. It was really fun though. I had a really good time. It was nice to see, those people again. And it's really funny actually, because I think that, like you commented a couple times around me, or I just heard you say to people a couple times, like how you have so many different friends from so many like different groups and like parts of your life that don't necessarily like mix together all the time. You just like know all these different people, which is pretty I think typical for the human experience, but like in general I think you in general have a lot of that going on. And it just so happens to be, I guess I'm far-reaching enough that I just happen to know all of them really.
You've met all of them at some point.
Yeah. So like while I'm introducing like people to each other who have never met before, I'm just kind of like, "Oh yeah, this is this person and this is that person. This is how they know Andrea," and like blah blah blah.
That's so funny. You're so right. You're so right. Yeah. I feel, well, obviously, like I feel like my best friends probably have met everyone at some point because like I hang out with you guys the most. Right. So that makes a lot of sense. That's so funny though. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. And one of the things is like, obviously, if you've listened to this podcast, you know how much that Drea loves Celine. And I was Celine. This is every single time you say Celine and then the next thing out about this, man, I love Celine.
It's true.
Anyway, it is true. And I was so happy because like right when she got there, like she came right up to me and was just like, "Hey Alex, how have you been?" Blah blah blah. I'm just kind of like, I love Celine.
See, I'm telling you. you. Selena's such a lovable little human being.
You are so sweet.
I know. I literally, I hate her. I hate that I love her so much.
Yeah,
anyways.
I think that me and her had only hung out like the one time, and she comes right up to me and starts like chit-chatting, like, oh, how you been, blah, blah, blah. And like, we're getting into like really like animated stories, whatever. I'm just like, I love Selene.
I know. I know. I only have friends with like awesome people. So
yeah, it was a really good time. What else was there that I did? I feel like there was a story from today. What is it? Oh, you'll like this. So like, you know that I'm not like super, super active like on the dating app that I'm on.
Right.
Like I mostly just let notifications accumulate because I'm a pain. That's what it is, I guess. I don't know. So I got a really funny message from someone. So like how this whole dating app works is that like for you to match with someone, either like you like their picture or you comment on their picture or prompt or something. So there's like a new aspect of this app where like you can send roses to people who you feel like you have like a particularly special connection with or whatever.
Okay.
Anyway, it's a new thing that I don't really understand, but I know it's like the people who are in like your rose area, like the algorithm suggests them because like there's something on their profile that like should really like appeal to you. And I got my first rose today from someone, and it's so funny because I died immediately when I saw it, because this is like if Eduardo was hitting on someone, this is what it would be like.
Okay,
so on my profile I have that I like Pokemon Go because I made this a while ago, and so this guy comments, and the funny thing is that this guy's name is Edward actually, but anyway. So, so this guy comments on my prompt that has the Pokemon Go thing, and he says, if you have a max CP Eevee with no intention of evolving it, then this rose is worth it. It's like, that's how Eduardo would approach it, because he's like, hey, so you want to trade me that legacy thing?
My God.
And I just laughed and laughed.
So did you like reciprocate? Were you like, hi?
No, I didn't, but I did laugh at it though.
My God.
Well, then also I'm just kind of like, well, what if I didn't have that Eevee? Then it's not worth it all of a sudden? Then I'm not worth it?
I mean, I'm not saying that you should like transfer. I'm just saying, were you like, let's get to know each other?
No, absolutely not. I'm going to just let it sit there.
Oh my God. All right, well, never mind
anyway,
then.
Other than that, I did a full week last week. Well, a full week for me, which is I only do it for 4 days, but I did a full week of running on the treadmill. So did the full 4 days, and I continued it this morning. And not only did I continue in this morning, but I doubled my workout.
Ooh, good for you.
I know. And I'm going to keep the doubled workout for the rest of this week.
That's awesome. I definitely haven't exercised at all. My exercising was today the AC was broken at work, so it was really hot and I was just sweating while sitting.
So you're just like in a sauna.
Yeah, that was my exercise this week.
Yes, I feel good about myself today because I got up and did that double workout.
All right. Anyway, well,
time to transition.
Let's move into our podcast. So back to what Alex was saying.
We're going to talk about Harry Potter.
Yeah, we're talking about Harry Potter. And yeah, it's problematic. J.K. Rowling, you know, we don't really stan her currently because of the comments she's made. But I saw, so when all that was happening last summer, when everyone was saying like, oh, J.K. Rowling sucks, da 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 da. And then I saw, who was it? I think it was the woman who plays McGonagall. I forget her name. Do you know it?
Off the top of my head, no, but I know. Oh, Maggie something.
Okay, well, Maggie, I think, was the one who like it was either Maggie or it was the guy who plays Lupin. But they posted something about like, I know what Harry Potter meant to like a lot of people, and I know that a lot of people in the LGBTQ community specifically resonated with it, and like it helped them get through a lot of hard times in their lives. And don't let the fact that like the author is saying these things like ruin that for you. Like just because she is not, as a person, she does not represent like the magic that is the books.
Well, and that's the thing is that, like, you know, obviously everyone has their different opinions about it. I have my own opinions about it. But the thing is, like, just in general, and not just with this, but just with, I think, anything that's like a movie or whatever, like across the board, it's a lot more than just, you know, the writer or whatever. Like, there's a lot of different people who put in work into this and put feelings into this.
Yeah.
So, you know, you can't just say, you know, this thing is over one person per se.
Yeah.
Or at least I think that that's, you know, kind of not the best way to think about it. Because, you know, you think about all the actors who, you know, put their efforts into it and whatever, and like they have feelings about it too. Like they have feelings about like their work in it.
Yeah.
So I think that it's more than just one person. It's always more than just one person when it comes to stuff like this. So
yeah, totally.
To, you know, deny the whole, you know, franchise would be to deny their parts in it as well.
Correct. Which that's also like a really reassuring thing is that like when all this was coming out, a lot of the cast members who like went into making the motion pictures were like, you know, not like denouncing her, but kind of like saying like, I don't support this viewpoint and I want you to know that like I support you and I support Harry Potter franchise. And, you know, like I hope that you continue to align with like that kind of mindset. And so like I feel like if all of the actors are like, oh yeah, you know, like I'd be like, well, maybe not so much. But the fact that all of them were like more open-minded is another reason I was just like, we can't cancel this. You know, I refuse to. But anyway, okay, so we're gonna talk about the first 3 movies.
Yeah.
You read the books, Alex?
I have read the books. You want to know why I've read all the books? This is a really horrible answer.
Wait, I think I know what your answer is. Can I guess?
Yes.
Is it because you get like, oh wait, no, you went to a private school.
I did.
My guess is moot. Okay, go on.
No, that's not necessarily true.
Oh, was it? Okay, yes. Was it that like you get extra points for like reading like Harry Potter books and that like SSR like reading thing? Like there was like those like point system things?
So here's the thing, like I don't know what SSR is, but we did have a program in our school called Accelerator Reader.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, so we had to, for each grade level or whatever, like read a certain amount of books to get a certain amount of points, like in order to, you know, get a good grade.
Right.
So I think there was a point maybe in early high school or something, or maybe late middle school. I think it was early high school though, where I still had to get accelerated reader points for some reason, which I'm just kind of like, at this age, why?
Yeah.
I think I might have been a freshman or something. Mm-hmm. And up until that point, I had actually never read the Harry Potter books.
Oh, and so you're just like, let me just plow through them.
Yeah, I'll just plow right through them now and like use up all these points that like people had used up 100 years ago in their like, you know, early accelerated reader point stuff, and I'll just use it all right now.
That's so funny. Yeah, accelerated reader was what it's called. So SSR stands for silent sustained reading. You never like, they never said like we have SSR time right now?
No, they just said AR time.
Really? Oh yeah. In public school, it's always like we're doing SSR time, and just meant like you're reading silently.
That was like the bane of my existence back then.
I mean, same. It like sucks because like now as an adult, like I enjoy reading.
Love it.
Like, yeah. And like as a kid, I went to such great lengths to not read things. Like I went out of my way. Like I spent more effort trying not to read something than the effort required to just read it.
Oh, for sure.
But I also, in my defense, I also like, as I've mentioned on this podcast before, I think I'm mildly dyslexic. So I think that was another contributing factor as to why I hated reading.
I think another contributing factor for me, and I've said this before, and my parents have reminded me of this recently, which was a really funny conversation to have with them, is that I don't like being told what to do.
Oh, that's so, oh my God, Alex. It's such a problem in school settings.
It's a problem just in life.
Yeah.
It's a problem in life because you're going to be told what to do about things. And I'm not going to lie and say that, you know, it's untrue, because it is.
Yeah.
But it also is very situational.
At least you're self-aware.
Yeah, I am. It doesn't necessarily stop it though.
Well.
Anyway, moving on.
What is it? What is it, like admittance is the first step or something like that? Anyway, okay. So let's move on to talking about the first movie / book, because I've also read this. The first movie, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. It came out in 2001.
The movie came out in 2001.
The movie came out in 2001, excuse me. I have no idea when the book came out, but sometime before then. When the movie came out, me and Alex were both 6 or 7 years old, depending on what month it came out in.
Right.
And so this was really just the introduction to the whole wizarding world. This was like the opening act, you know, like, oh, Harry is a wizard and he's living amongst muggles, aka non-magical people. And
Right.
it's like the whole, like, you know, just like coming to like the new world and like learning about magic and all that good stuff. So I feel like this book is like really just like the fun first one where we get to see, it like opens our eyes to like all the like cool creative like imagination that could happen through these stories, you know?
Right. And now I have to ask, did you watch this in the theater?
No, I did not watch this one in the theater.
Now, I feel like I watched this one in the theater, but I might be just like inserting memories into my own brain because it was so long ago. But I feel like I watched this in the theater. Like, I feel like the beginning scene is like one of the most like memorable things like ever. Like it, like because you know, you think about like the just impact in general of all these movies.
Mm-hmm.
And like you think about where it all started, right? So Sorcerer's Stone, and really and truly, it's a good movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like you see, you know, Dumbledore walking down the street and he takes out that, you know, lighter thing and starts taking out all the lights from the street. It was a really cool thing to start off something that I'm sure no one thought was going to be what it was.
Oh, definitely. And like going to your point, Alex, really fast, this isn't necessarily about the first 3 movies, but it definitely is just about like the franchise in general. I remember by the time it got to like Order of the Phoenix, I remember seeing a trailer for Harry Potter and being like, they're still making Harry Potter movies. And then like I was like over it at that point, and then like shortly after I like reignited my love for it, and I was just like, Deathly Hallows, you know. But it was just like really wild to like see how long this franchise went on for, because the first one came out when we were 6, and then the last one came out when we were 18.
Yeah.
It was literally our whole lives.
But yeah, all of our childhood, essentially. Our whole lives.
It's still affecting my life today, okay?
Listen, it's been almost 10 years since, you know, the last one.
It's been 11.
Whatever. Then we weren't.
It's been 10 years. No.
I mean, if you said that it came out when we're 18, we're both 27 now.
It came out in 2011. So it's been 10 years.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah. And the only reason I know it came out in 2011 was because I remember I was in summer school going into my senior year of high school, and I went to see the midnight showing of it.
You know, it's really interesting actually, because like that's, you know, you said that was your whole attitude towards it, like, oh, another one's coming out or whatever. Whereas on my end of it, I feel like for me and my brothers, it was always like you expected, like almost at the beginning, at least almost every year, you just was like, oh, when's the next Harry Potter movie coming out?
It was like the Avengers when we were younger.
Yeah, because it was just coming out almost every year. Like for the first 3, because we have all the years on it, you know, it's 2001, 2002, and then 2004. So like almost consecutive years, like these movies like were coming out. And it was such a good story.
Yeah, I think the only reason that I was like over it for a while was because 1, I never read the books when I was younger, and 2, I didn't grow up with boys, so like nobody wanted to see it with me. You know what I mean? Not to say that it's a boy book, but like when I was growing up, my like friends or my sister, like we were like, let's go see like Hercules, you know, like Disney movies and stuff like that.
Right. Whereas both my brothers had their own book sets of, you know, this whole thing. And also we had so the 5th book, Order of the Phoenix, we had that on tape.
Oh, that's funny.
Like we had the book on tape.
I love that.
In addition to just having the book also, like we also had it on tape. I remember playing it a couple of times.
That is definitely, yeah, that's like a sign of the times.
Yeah, it really is. But anyway.
Okay, well, anyway. So yeah, so back to the first one. So this is where we're introduced to the 3 main protagonists, Harry Potter, Ronald Weasley, and Hermione Granger. And poor Hermione, they really did her dirty in this movie, because Emma Watson is definitely such a little cutie pie.
Right.
And her hair is the most outrageous thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's like the poofiest thing ever, which I guess, you know, is probably like true. I think at that point they're probably trying to be the truest to what the book said of their descriptions.
Yeah,
You
but
know, making them all crazy looking.
I think it's definitely also like when you're a kid, you're more willing to be ugly.
Yeah.
So I'm sure like Emma Watson was like, yeah, okay, like I'm this character. Whereas like today she probably looks back and she's like, Lord in heaven, my hair.
Right. That's true. And like one fun fact about like the whole thing, which, well, the fun fact part of it is that, you know, Harry, like Daniel Radcliffe, the actor who played Harry Potter, his eyes are one color, right? So they're blue.
Blue.
His blue eyes. But he's supposed to have green eyes.
Right.
So the thing is that they actually initially had tried to make him wear color contacts.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
But he just hated it.
I mean, yeah, if you're committing to like 8 movies and you're gonna have to wear colored contacts that whole time, yeah, I wouldn't commit to it either.
Well, even then, like they probably didn't know like the commitment it was gonna really be like basically, you know, so many years of their life doing these movies. I don't think that necessarily that was a done deal back then. But I can imagine for a child actor to have to wear colored contacts for, you know, sustained parts of the day is probably too much.
Yeah.
Fun fact about that.
That's a fun fact. So Alex, you were a little bit scared of this movie, right?
I was. So there was, mind you, obviously we're pretty young at this point.
6 or 7.
Right, 6 or 7. Well, and also like I was actually probably 7 or 8.
Okay, when you saw it.
Yeah, because you know, like this year, so this is 2021 that we're in. So literally this movie came out 20 years ago. Hate that. But anyway, so I started off this year as 27 and I'll be turning 28. So I was probably 7 or 8 at the time. And just like, you know, put yourself in that mind frame, or like my mind frame back then, where I was really like scared of the dark and like just really scared in general of just like creepy things. So like I think nearish to the beginning they show how Harry's parents die. And like the whole thing going on with like, you know, it's kind of like almost dream sequency, and then, you know, Voldemort goes into like the room where Harry and Lily are and kills Lily, and she does that like blood curdling scream. Like that stuck with me, like that scream.
You're like nightmare fuel.
Basically. And then like later on in the movie, you know, the main trio, the 3 Musketeers and also Hagrid, they end up going into the Forbidden Forest. And they end up running into what they didn't know at the time to be Voldemort sucking the blood of a unicorn.
Yeah, that was a disturbing scene. I remember that.
So yeah, like that whole thing, like, you know, he raises up like with the silver dripping blood on his chin, and then he like floats around the ground, like specters around, and like tosses into the air and whatever. Like that was creepy. That gave me legit kind of nightmares actually. Like I'd have to kind of look away because we watched those movies all the time growing up. And I was kind of like having to like not look really because it was like freaking me out.
Yeah, I can see that. I can get that too. Like when you're young, things that aren't necessarily that scary are like really scary.
And then the last part, like that was particularly scary for me was, so at the very end, right? And I would like to say no spoiler, well, not to spoil it, but if you haven't seen the first Harry Potter movie by this time, then you deserve it.
Yeah.
You just should get it together, really. But anyway, so at the end, right? So Harry faces off on his own with Professor Quirrell, who is hiding Voldemort in his turban.
Which is okay.
So, like, you know, he does the whole thing where, you know, he turns around, well, he unwraps his turban and then he turns around so that Voldemort's face can, like, come out, essentially, at the back of his head. So you see the whole thing, like, where his face starts to form, whatever, and that's creepy enough to, like, see that whole thing. And then there's a part of it, like, where, I guess, like, Voldemort's spirit, like, comes out and, like, tries to, like, get Harry or whatever.
Oh,
like,
yeah. It, like, goes through him, yeah.
Like, the dust of him or whatever. Because, I think that, so the whole thing at the end was that, like, Quirrell can be touched by Harry because of the love that was...
Lily.
Yeah, Lily's love that is in, like, Harry's, like, touch.
Mm-hmm.
So like basically turned Quirrell into dust.
Right.
And then the dust is what comes up, goes into the shape of Voldemort's face and just like goes through Harry. And it was scary.
You're like, it was traumatizing.
Yeah. So, I mean, those are like the things that like scared me about it when I was little. Obviously, now just kind of like, who even cares?
Yeah.
But
I mean, I probably would have been scared of that too. I actually didn't watch this one first. I watched the second one first.
what?
Yeah, and so
Sacrilegious, ma'am.
well, I'll get to that when we start talking about the second one. But anyways, so it didn't really scare me when I watched it, but one of the things that was really cool to me was like this whole idea of like Harry Potter. Like I know in the movie he is this sort of celebrity to like the characters, but like I
Mhm.
feel like he was like a celebrity his like not Daniel Radcliffe, but like Harry Potter was a celebrity to me when I watched this cuz like he is so cool because he was like young, he was a kid, you know, he like saved the day. He was like the seeker on the Quidditch team. Like he was just this cool kid, you know? And I was like, dang, I want to be friends with Harry Potter. Like I was
Right.
so into it. So like the way that he was like viewed in the like in the story itself, like within Harry Potter, I feel
Mhm.
like is how I viewed him in real life.
Hmm.
But anyway, okay, so that's Sorcerer's Stone. Let's move on to Chamber of Secrets. That's the second movie. Came out in 2002. We are about 7, 8, or 9-ish, depending on Alex.
Right.
And so this one for me is the most nostalgic because it's the first one I saw. And let me tell you why. So growing up, I don't know if I mentioned this, but growing up, my parents were like really strict with like things I could watch and like things I couldn't. And so
Mhm.
Harry Potter was definitely like witches, wizards was definitely not on the okay list.
Mhm.
So they would have never taken me to see this if it weren't for the fact that I was on this soccer team. I was an ASO and I was on the soccer team. And one of the events that like the moms put on was just like, okay, let's get all the kids, let's go see a movie. And so then I remember like the daughter of like the teen mom, whatever, her being like, should we watch Harry Potter or should we watch the Santa Claus 2? And I remember being like, neither. Like I've never seen either of them. And then she's like, we're just gonna watch Harry Potter. And I was like, I guess. So then I went in like second grade with my soccer team to watch the second Harry Potter, even though I'd never seen the first one. And I was
Mhm.
like, this is cool. Like, I was like, this is a cool movie. And so from there is when I went back and watched the first one. And then, you know, obviously all the subsequent ones also.
Right. I mean, that's an interesting one to start out with because I feel like there's a kind of like tonal shift almost. Like I feel like there's like a pretty good like shift in tone like from movie to movie. And
Yeah,
it's hard for me to really put my finger on exactly what the shift is. I think, you know, things just get a little bit more serious, I guess.
totally.
Because like
100%.
as like the time goes on, like the story gets more and more like
Dark.
dark.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe that's what it is then. So
I think it's
what
also sorry, really fast. I
uh-huh.
think it's also because like it was like we were growing with the characters.
Right. Yeah.
So like as the characters grow, like as we grow, we can handle more darker themes, you know?
Right. Well, I mean, I think, you know, for the most part, that's more coincidental that we got to experience it
You're
that way.
right. Yeah, you're right.
But yeah, so this one is a little bit darker in tone. And then one not so fun fact is that this was the last movie that the original Dumbledore was featured in. Because the
Yeah,
original actor ended up passing away after this movie.
correct. And then another quick fun fact about that actor is that when they first announced that like they were going to be making Harry Potter movies, his grandson was a big fan of the Harry Potter books. And
Mhm.
he was like, "Grandpa, if you don't go out for Dumbledore, I'm disowning you." And so then the actor was like, "What the hell is Harry Potter?" He's like, "I have no interest in doing this." But his grandson had guilt tripped him so much that he was like, God dang it, I gotta go out for this role. And then he got it, and he was a Dumbledore.
He was a good Dumbledore
He
too.
was.
Can you imagine if he was the Dumbledore the whole time?
I
What
don't
that
think
would
it'd
have
be
been
the
like?
same though. I don't think it'd be the same. Like as much as
Yeah.
he was a good Dumbledore, towards the end especially, it needed to be the other actor.
Oh, for sure. I think that a lot of the, you know, it would have been too demanding on
Yeah,
him towards
yeah,
the end. It would have just, it needed to be that way. But also, you know, you never really know, I think, when you're making a movie franchise like that it's going to really make it towards the end. And also, the books hadn't all been written yet either.
right.
Because like I remember
you didn't even know how Dumbledore's character was even going to like develop.
Because I can remember going out to buy the last book in high school.
Dang, that's wild.
It was like you were waiting for that book to come out. Like you were so excited. And also the really good thing about like waiting for that book to come out is that like with each book that went on, the books got longer.
Yeah.
Like longer and longer and longer. So like the last book was actually pretty big. It was a pretty long book. So like that's actually a pretty satisfying read. Although I do feel like I read the whole thing in less than 2 days.
Well, I mean, when you're like really committed to a story, it's like not hard to read a long book, you know?
Right. Yeah. I'm really invested. I have to binge read it and basically not sleep. But anyway. So yeah, so you were talking about, dark tones and whatever. What makes you feel like this movie is just so much darker than the first?
So for me, it was like the whole, and I know this isn't revealed until the end, but it happens throughout the whole movie, but it's that whole idea of like quote unquote possession / manipulation or whatever it is you want to call it, the spell that is put on Ginny Weasley, where she's like the one that is, painting the halls in blood and like doing all the bidding of the Dark Lord,
Yeah.
And it's like unbeknownst to her. And that to me was so scary because I was just like, I'm Ginny's age. Like that could happen to me. Like it was just like frightening, like that idea of like mind control, I guess.
Right. I mean, that is definitely, dark themes and whatever. And one thing that I think is kind of interesting is that like from the first movie, right? So the first movie introduces Draco Malfoy as being, one of the main antagonists, right?
Right.
He's an entitled jerk. He's, in the bad, house, quote unquote bad house, even though Slytherin's not, supposed to be an evil house, but whatever. We'll get to that later. Anyway, the smile that you have on your face, we're gonna fight. You and I are gonna fight. Anyway, so, at that point in the first movie, even though he's a jerk, it's still fairly benign, right?
Right.
Like, it's just schoolyard sort of stuff. Like, it's not anything like too intense, but this next movie, Chamber of Secrets, really cements his family as being just evil, right?
Yeah.
So, like, it introduces his dad, Lucius Malfoy, and Lucius is the one who gives Tom Riddle's diary to Jenny with full malice intended. Like, I'm going to get some people murdered. I'm going to mess things up. I'm a bad person. And I'm also, enslaving a house elf.
Yeah, it's all bad. The Malfoy family, like, I definitely am a fan of their development as characters.
Yeah.
But they, at this point, definitely, it's like, God, they're the worst. Like, you literally can't think of worse people than Lucius.
Right. Yeah. Especially like, the very interesting part about it, which you don't necessarily know until you've seen the fourth movie, actually, or read the fourth book, is that at the end of the movie, right? So, not talking about all the stuff that happens, in the meantime, but at the end of the movie, Lucius, because he also works for the Ministry of Magic, like he comes and ends up like asking, oh, what's going on, whatever, like talking in Dumbledore's office. And then, basically Harry says in no uncertain terms, like, I know that you did this. Like, I know that this is like what you did, like by giving the diary back to him, like, this is yours. Claim your, part in this. And Harry, works out in his mind, I'm going to free Lucius's house elf who's been helping me out this entire time, Dobby. And the whole thing, if you don't know what you should know about the house elves, is that if their master presents them with clothes, they get to be free. So he hides his sock inside of this diary, unbeknownst to Lucius. Lucius hands off the diary to Dobby, and Harry's like, just like, dude, open it. Opens it, frees Dobby. Dobby is like super happy. Lucius is super ticked off. And if you notice, when he takes out his wand and like starts to attack Harry, that he starts saying the killing curse.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing could have ended right there.
Yeah, Lucius is a next level. Like, he is wildly out of his mind. Like who I can't even like, you know, like how would you explain that? How would you literally explain that if he were to actually have killed him?
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the whole thing. It would have just been so bad for the story. Like, there's nothing really to say about it because you ruined everything at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I don't usually rewatch this particular movie. Like this one and Order of the Phoenix, like I don't typically rewatch those at all. I don't rewatch Chamber of Secrets because I really dislike shoot, what's his name? And he's also the director.
Who?
You know, the really annoying Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher.
Oh,
Lockhart.
yeah. Oh, yeah, Lockhart.
Gilderoy Lockhart.
You know what he's the director of?
Hmm.
Thor.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that a wild thought that Gilderoy Lockhart directed Thor?
Yeah, it is. Ugh. He's like, his character is so annoying that I
mean,
can't
yeah.
stand to watch the movie.
But he's supposed to be annoying.
I know that he's supposed to be, and guess what? He does a really good job because I kind of hate it a little bit.
Okay, well.
Which is why when you said that's your, most nostalgic one, it was kind of like, what?
But also, I'm not as easily annoyed as you are by people. Like the whole like Andy Samberg, like Seth Rogen, like all those dudes, like they don't annoy me, and I know they endlessly annoy you.
Right. So, I mean, he's a character that I don't want to deal with, but like, so since I don't really rewatch this one, like when I saw it like on TV, because well, not obviously, but like if you've been around and like watched cable television, you know that what was once ABC Family and now Freeform, every Christmas, for whatever reason, marathons Harry Potter, which I wouldn't necessarily say that Harry Potter is like a Christmas movie. It does have Christmas scenes like in some of them. But I wouldn't necessarily say that it's a Christmas movie.
It's a Christmas movie.
You don't need to have an excuse to have a Harry Potter marathon. I'm for it. So that's fine. So like, every year you can run across these movies at, some point.
Which is so funny because I remember like owning all of them, and yet every single time I saw a Harry Potter marathon on ABC Family, I'd be like, put it on. Gotta watch
right? You were subjecting yourself to commercials when you could have just like watched it on DVD.
It's because I wanted to watch it with the rest of the nation.
Absurd. Anyway, so like recently, like I'd seen it come on or whatever, and like my dad really likes the franchise, so like he puts it on in the background or whatever. And like that part of the movie came on, and I feel like this is probably within the past 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I not rewatched it recent enough to realize the whole Lucius is about to perform the killing curse on Harry thing.
Mm-hmm.
So all of a sudden he starts saying, Avada, but like it sounds like super
like it's nasty, yeah.
Which I always thought was super weird when I was a kid because I'm just like, what is he even like saying? What is he even uttering right now? And then all of a sudden it clicked to me recently. I'm just kind of like, excuse me? You're about to kill off the character.
It's right over there. The end. 2 movies. Bye.
But anyway, so like that was my big discovery then that you wouldn't have necessarily known like at the time when you were watching it unless like you had read up to the 4th book or whatever.
Right. Anyway,
so a little bit. I would like to say that we probably agree that the whole Tom Riddle Basilisk battle like at the end was pretty stressful.
Oh yeah, it was the most stress. For me it was like I remember watching that scene, and I remember when the basilisk came out of like the mouth thing, like that like stone thing. I was like what the hell? Like I'm like I didn't sign up for this movie. Like I was like, this is too much. Like a giant dinosaur-like snake? No, thank you.
Yeah, I hate snakes just in general.
Mm-hmm.
So a giant snake that is like super scary, and like I'm just like I think at that point in the movie, like you're really locked in. So like the whole fact of is Ginny dead? Who is Tom Riddle? The snake is now going to chase around Harry and like almost kill him, right? Because the fang gets stuck while Harry's killing the basilisk with the sword of Gryffindor. One of the basilisk's fangs gets stuck in his arm and he gets poisoned.
Yeah. So when he like stabbed, up in the basilisk's mouth, whatever, when he like stabbed in it, and then the fang went into his arm. So I have this like weird secondhand, like, I don't know if it's like an empathy thing or like what it is, but when I see people get injured, I experience physical pain.
Right. Yeah, you've talked about this before.
Yeah, and so like when I saw the fang go into his arm, I was like, holy God. Like my whole body was like clenching and like I just felt like kill me. And so the whole thing was just like not a good situation for me. Like it wasn't enjoyable.
Right.
I enjoyed it after the fact, but
right. You know, it's really interesting because thereafter he, obviously has killed the basilisk and like he's dragging the sword and the fang over with him to go, check on Ginny and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And Tom Riddle's ghost is just like hanging out there, right? Or astral projection or whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
And my whole thing is like, so this is when Harry decides I'm going to just start stabbing away at this diary, right? Because like I'm like dying, so I'm just going to go all out now.
Yeah.
Which is like really like the series of stabbings that he does is the most dramatic thing I've ever seen. Like the way, the slow way in which he stabs like this book.
Mm-hmm.
And like in different parts of the book as well. And I'm just kind of like, so do we have to assume then that Tom Riddle's like apparition or whatever is not able to physically interfere with anything?
Well, he
like, he's
can't
just like
Harry.
He can't like possess him or anything.
I don't think so. Well, at that point, I don't think he knew that he could possess Harry.
I don't know, because I guess like how was he possessing Ginny before? Because my whole thing is the point being is that he's basically like when Harry's like taking out the diary all slow because he's injured and dying. And grabs the fang or whatever, and Tom Riddle's like, "Hey, what are you doing?"
I thought that Tom Riddle had possessed Jenny via her reading the book.
Well, writing her feelings.
Or like like I thought it was like some sort of spell with like interacting with the journal. So as long as
Harry had done that too.
Well, yeah, but he wasn't currently.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Point being, it's just kind of like I thought it was kind of interesting. I guess if it's if he can't do anything, then he can't do anything. But basically, he was just standing there being like, "Harry, don't do it," and Harry's just kind of like, "Well, man, I'm just gonna stab you."
Right. And then my last comment about this movie was this is like not even so much like in your face blatant, but I feel like this is like the first time that we saw some sort of parallel between Harry and Tom Riddle. Because this is when we were introduced to Fox. And later we find out that their wands are connected because it's like if they both share the feather of the phoenix.
Yeah.
So that's like something small that like definitely at the time, I did not realize. But now I'm like, oh, it's the first time that we see some sort of connection between them. Which obviously later we find out is something much more.
Right, yeah.
But anyway. Okay,
moving on.
Let's move on to the third one and the last one we're going to talk about tonight. But Prisoner of Azkaban came out in 2004. We were approximately 9 to 10-ish years old. This is my least favorite.
And my second favorite.
Yeah, I know. I know that it's a problematic position to take, but I feel like out of all of the movies, this one's my least favorite. Like the least amount of like drastic things happens for me in this one.
You really feel that way?
Yeah.
I feel like so much gets introduced and like so many like good and interesting things happen.
Yeah, I mean, okay, yes, I do agree that like a lot of good things happen in this one. And I feel like maybe that's why it's my least favorite. Because I feel like I like the ones that are really dark and have like really like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. This one's more of like a happy ending in a way,
Yeah, I can see that. So, well, let's just get into it a little bit. So this one I feel like is the biggest and most obvious change of tone, I feel, just in general. And the way that they also portray the whole universe, I feel like just looks different now.
Yeah.
So I think that this is the first time that Professor Flitwick looks kind of like young. Because if you remember in the first two, he was like really old and like gray hair and all this whatever, like from the first movie, Splish and Flick, that whole thing. Whereas when they bring him back in, because he's also the music guy, and all of a sudden he has jet black hair, is a different actor entirely. So there's that.
Yeah.
Has a mustache. Like he just looks so different. You introduce new Dumbledore. And also, this is the first movie of the movies that have come out thus far that actually has a different director. So I think that, there's just a lot of different things that give it a different tone. And I think just in general, like, you're experiencing, like, almost, like, I feel like this is, like, the Halloween movie, almost. If you understand what I mean by that. If like you get the whole Halloweenish feeling. Like
Yeah, I
this
get
feels
that.
like super witchy and just like all this like stuff. And I really like that about this movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good movie. Like, that's my point. It's not, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying out of all of them, this one's my least favorite. Because I feel like, and here's the thing, although it's my least favorite, some of my favorite characters are introduced in this one.
Right.
Because in this movie is when we get introduced to Sirius Black
Mm-hmm.
and Professor Lupin.
Right.
And they are two of my favorite characters. Sirius Black being introduced as like this serial killer who supposedly played some sort of role in Harry Potter's parents' death, which ultimately we obviously find out that that's not the case, and he was actually a good friend and like Harry's godfather. And then Lupin, who is also one of Harry's father's friends, is battling his own issue being a werewolf. And that whole like conundrum for me was very enjoyable. Like every scene with Lupin and every scene with Sirius, I really enjoyed.
Right.
But I just felt like there was like not enough in this movie to make me be like, dang, that was a great movie.
So one quick sidebar about Sirius Black. Do you remember that over the summer when we watched Goblet of Fire, and you had asked me what Harry Potter character I thought that you were? Do you remember that I said I thought you were Sirius Black?
No.
Really?
What was the reasoning?
Well, I don't remember the reasoning specifically, but I know part of the reasoning was that like Sirius Black is like a really like cool character. Like maybe like he had like a darker side, but like he's like one of like the dopest characters. Because you were so flattered at the end of my explanation. You're just like, oh, thanks.
I think we were playing a drinking game to it, so it's
You're
hard
right.
for me to recall. But that is really nice. I mean, Sirius Black being one of my favorite characters, I'm obviously like, yeah, I'll be Sirius Black.
But anyway, that's pretty funny. So I think that, you know, there's a couple of things I really like about this movie, and maybe like part of this, because like you said, like there's just not a dump dark things that happen. That might be one of the reasons why I like it so much, in the sense of like, so like one of the main plot points of this movie that kind of gets introduced early on is that like Hermione is taking like a crazy amount of classes that she shouldn't be able to take, and like you kind of just like, you're introduced to it early on. You kind of write it off because of like the whatever explanation that she gives about it, because Ron asks like, how did you get here, like why are you in all these classes, blah blah blah, and she's like, don't worry about it. And it turns out that she has a magical item called a time turner that allows her to literally turn back time.
Right.
And so she's able to get from like class to class and like basically be in two places at once. And like the whole thing, like aside from the fact that throughout the movie you kind of have to really, you're left guessing who the actual bad guy is. Like, is Sirius Black really, you know, a murderer? Is Lupin, you know, a good guy, or is he in league with the bad guy? What's going on with Ron's rat?
Yeah.
This whole thing, the Grim and all this stuff. And like, you know, all this stuff like happens, you know, kind of almost midpoint of the movie, like mid to like late point of the movie. And there's so much like left, but you do the whole time turner thing, because like one of like the casualties in the movie that really like hurts you if you're an animal lover is that the hippogriff Buckbeak gets sentenced to death because Malfoy is a tool, essentially.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I really like about this, and because it upset me in the movie when Buckbeak had died, is that, you know, by using the time turner, they get to bring Buckbeak back. They get to save him.
Well, in reality, Buckbeak never died.
Right. I mean, yes. In their eyes, though, he had died.
Right.
I didn't realize that they were simultaneously saving him.
Right. There's two universes happening at once.
Which is just like, it's kind of like, you know, one of those like mind trick things, like you just like trip over it in your mind, just like, well, you know, when did it start? Like it's a chicken or the egg sort of thing.
Right.
But so like they get to, you know, see the other side of all the events that they went through in the movie. So like Buckbeak didn't really die. Harry's dad isn't really the one to cast the Patronus at the end. It's Harry. Harry essentially saves himself from Dementors. You know, all this stuff. And it's really interesting to me, and I really like it in the sense of like, you know, Buckbeak and Sirius get to escape. He doesn't have to go back to prison. You know, he gets to have like discover his own strength and whatever. Like I would just really like the overall tone. And you start to see like the very, very beginnings of like what will end up being the Ron and Hermione relationship as well.
Right. And I'm here to say I totally agree with everything you had to say there. I think it was great. I think it's a great movie. It's just my least favorite of all the amazing movies. Yeah. And I definitely think that it's funny that you're mentioning so much about like, you know, like the great things that like Sirius didn't have to go back to prison and that Buckbeak didn't die. And like, I love how you just keep on including Buckbeak's like life worth with Sirius. Because I'm the same way. I'm just like animals above humans.
Well, because like, so for example, this is a little bit of a tangent. I had watched a movie with my dad this weekend called The Marksman.
Okay.
And like the whole thing, and you have to like, I guess, understand this about like a lot of action movies, especially a lot of them were like, you know, the guy's kind of like an older guy and he's, you know, an ex like, you know, military or whatever, and he gets, you know, messed up in all this like tomfoolery and chaos and whatever. If the guy has a dog, chances are
the dog's
gonna die. And every single time when the dog dies, you lose me in the movie.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm so upset because like I really like animals and I don't like it when they're the victims in movies.
Yes.
Because literally they don't deserve it at
100%,
all.
100%, 1,000,000%.
So like, you know, the dog died in this movie and like as soon as it happened, like I look at my dad, I'm just kind of like, you know, why is that? Because here's the thing, like usually when the dog dies in the movie, like when the dog is like the pal in the movie, like it happens like earlier on.
Yeah.
It's kind of like almost like an inciting incident to like aid the hero in whatever they're doing. Like now an extra motivation they have is, so, well, they killed my dog.
Right.
But like the dog lasted for longer than I thought it was going to. So I was just like, oh, maybe the dog is actually going to survive this.
It was like a false sense of hope.
It was false hope. I was lured in and I felt betrayed at the end. But yes, so Buckbeak had to survive because literally he didn't do anything wrong. Malfoy
was a total tool.
He's just being a tool. So Buckbeak didn't deserve it. So
100. Speaking of which, I like that this is the first movie that Hagrid had a more substantial role.
Yeah.
Okay, and also going back to Lupin, so I feel like this movie is when we're starting to catch on that like there's something odd with the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. Like seems like every single movie, the problem is always stemming from the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. And I feel like this is the first movie you're like, something's afoot. So that's number one. And then two, this was where we start to see a significant like age jump in the characters. Like I feel like in the first two,
like in the
like,
actors themselves,
kids, in the actors themselves, like they're kids in the first two, and then this one you're like, oh, they're getting older. Yeah, like they're like aging, definitely. And I remember seeing on like Nickelodeon, they were having like this like exclusive interview with the cast, and I remember Hermione or like Emma Watson being like, oh yeah, this is the first movie where I get to wear jeans and I didn't have to just wear my uniform the whole time. And she was like, I was so excited about it because I could have some style. And she was like talking about it. And I was just like, oh God, isn't that weird? Like, because it like their characters are growing, like their characters are literally in like year 3, you know, like they're aging. Yeah. But like the actors themselves are also aging. And that's just like a trip to like, I don't know, witness.
Well, absolutely. Especially, you know, you consider the time it takes to like actually film a movie. So like, I think that it's difficult to, you know, include that, you know, part of it in like considering like kids develop a lot, you know, and very quickly.
Yeah.
Like whether that be, you know, like intellectually or emotionally or, you know, just physically, they grow a lot. So like, as you were saying, the first 2 movies, they're literally children and all of a sudden they're like preteens or like almost like teenagers looking. Like they're pretty old. And it's really interesting like how they like incorporate those age changes into like how the characters act as well, because like this is the first one where Hermione says really anything about her appearance in the movie, because like there's a part of it like when, you know, when they're doing the whole time turner thing and they had just like, or I think they had just saved Buckbeak or whatever, and her and Harry were watching all of themselves like from like a distance, and Hermione's all looking at whatever, and she's just like, all of a sudden, is that really what my hair looks like from the back?
Yeah, it's cute. It's like definitely like they wrote into the movie what we're all noticing. It's like we're noticing that we're getting older, we're noticing that they're getting older, and they like weren't shy about it, They talked about it in the movie, which was a cool little treat.
And my last thing that I'll say about this movie, and one thing that I really just appreciate in general about like the character development for this character, is that this is the first time they really show Professor Snape is actually really caring about the three of them as like students and people.
Yeah.
So like the whole time, like in the first two movies, like he's also an antagonist. They hate him. They're just kind of like, this dude is up to evil things, blah, blah, blah. And Snape follows them to the Shrieking Shack, tries to save them really from Sirius Black. And, he no good deed goes unpunished because he gets knocked out for it. And then later on when he comes to and whatever, and he like, because the shortcuts through the Weeping Willow, he comes out and he's just like, what was that all about? But then, turns around to see, Lupin being a werewolf. And like the big, the famous photo from that is him.
My babies.
Yeah, he, going in front of the students and literally putting like his arms back around them.
Yeah.
To shield all three of them. Because, say what you want about, Snape's character at that point, but he really shows like, I'm going to protect these kids.
Yeah. His primary
really, yeah, he's not really a bad guy.
Yeah, totally.
Like, you don't know that until the end of the series, really, that he's actually been a good guy this whole time, really. But
this was like a glimpse.
Yeah, this was the beginning of showing like that he has, a multi, dimensional character.
Right. Yeah, totally. That's a great point that you pointed out, Alex. All right. Well, that pretty much concludes our thoughts on the first three movies. Let's conclude the podcast with 3 fun questions. So answer these questions as you feel are appropriate. Which house are you in?
So one of like the saltiest things ever is we all took the Pottermore quiz our freshman year at college. And here's the thing is that you guys all like told me one that I was Fire Nation, so there's that. And then when I got tested for the Pottermore thing and tested into Slytherin, you're just like, all you guys were just like, oh yeah, that totally fits. I was like, dude, why do you guys say that I'm all the evil things?
You're not. You even said that Slytherin isn't actually evil. It just so happens that it's because the people that are put into Slytherin are very like, what's the word? They're very resourceful. Like, they're very, they like, for lack of a better word, like they know how to scheme. Like, what's the right word for that? Like, they know how to like.
Their words like that you'll see on like all the merchandise or whatever are ambition and cunning.
Yeah, cunning. That's the right word. They're very cunning. And like, I feel like you're very like, that's very applicable to your personality. It's not necessarily that the people that are portrayed in the house are you. It's just that the house itself is you.
Anyway, but yes, so I don't feel necessarily bad about being a Slytherin anymore. I was salty about it in the beginning because I'm just kind of like, why do I have to be all of the evil things? Why does everyone just be like, oh yeah, that checks out, man?
That's so funny.
I retested a couple years back and it said that I was a Ravenclaw, so I kind of like to say that I'm a Slytherclaw. But then I also say to like basically everyone that we have a little bit of all the houses in us.
I mean,
if we're being honest.
Obviously.
But yeah, I probably identify the most as Slytherin though.
Yeah, it makes sense.
I could see that being a part of my personality.
Yeah, so same goes for me. When I first tested freshman year, I was a Gryffindor, and then, which I was like sick. And then I retested later, like as an adult, and I also got Ravenclaw. And I'm just like, I mean, I guess, but like, just like you're saying, like, I identify more with Gryffindor, but like, fine, I guess, Ravenclaw's fine. As long as I'm not Hufflepuff.
Like Aaron.
Like Aaron, yeah.
But what's so funny about the whole thing is like, you think about how, you and I met because we were in the honors floor of our, dorm. We were honor students because we're nerds, man.
I mean, yeah.
So the Ravenclaw thing is kind of warranted.
No, it's fitting. That's why I'm like, I'm not a Ravenclaw. But I also identify more with Gryffindor. So, anyway. Okay, let's move to the second question. What Deathly Hallows would you choose? So the Deathly Hallows are the Cloak of Invisibility, the Resurrection Stone, and the Elder Wand.
I want the Invisibility Cloak for sure. I think the Resurrection Stone has too many bad implications.
Totally.
And then also the Elder Wand, it's probably not worth being challenged for all the time and like dying.
I 100% agree with you. I'm like, I would take the Invisibility Cloak for so many nefarious reasons, but I want it.
Yeah, the Invisibility Cloak sounds good. I'd like to be able to sneak around.
Amen. Yeah. Okay, the last question. What character would you date?
Let's see. I feel like there's a lot I get to. Well, see, here's my rationale and the way that I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about it even like for any of the characters at whatever age they're at, right? So like if I were to say, you know, one of the older characters, I could be like, oh, but you know, at this age, that sort of thing. So let me see here. Certainly not Ron.
Okay.
Wait, are you going to say Ron?
Totally. I would totally date Ron. He's my favorite. He's so fun and he like has such great character development and he comes from a fun family and like totally I would 100% date Ron.
Ron towards the end, sure. I think that that's a viable option. Although I have to say that in general, red hair on men doesn't really seem attractive to me, which I know is really hypocritical.
I was going to say, I'm like,
I have red hair. I think it's nice. I understand the conflict of what I'm bringing up right now, but I'm just saying that, you know, it doesn't really work on all people, which case in point is, you know, I'm not really sure that it works super well on Rupert Grint.
That's so mean. I think Rupert Grint is cute.
He is cute. I'm just saying that it doesn't, you know, it's not. Anyway. So let's see, what other guys do we have going on here? And definitely not Neville. Although I will say that the actor who plays him grows up very well.
I was gonna say, yeah, he had a great glow up, but okay.
He had an outstanding glow up, which is really funny because like I had watched, you know, some of the special features like for the DVDs and whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure which movie it was. It might have been like the third or fourth one or whatever. Where like they were saying that they had to purposely like make his character super ugly because he was getting too attractive.
Oh my god, that's funny though. Because he really is. He's super cute.
Yeah, like especially like as an adult, like he is very attractive. Anyway, so what else we got going on here? You know what? Dean's pretty cute. He's not an interesting personality, but he's cute.
He's all right.
What I would like truly say though is I'd probably date a younger Lupin.
I love Lupin. I mean, obviously, but if we're talking,
you know, not like old Lupin, but like younger Lupin.
I would date old Lupin.
I would date old Lupin.
Well, I also I don't mind older men.
It's not even just that, but like, you know, his defeatist attitude at that point.
Yeah, well, he's jaded.
Right.
All right, well,
which is part of his appeal. But anyway, you chose Ron.
I chose Ron. Which is funny though, because if I were to choose a female, I would choose Tonks, which is Lupin's significant other.
That is funny.
Okay, anyway, well, that was a long podcast. That concludes the Harry Potter Part 1 podcast. We'll revisit it in a later date. But I hope you guys had fun. Rewatch have a Harry Potter ABC Family Marathon at your house.
No, called Freeform.
Freeform, excuse me. All right. See you guys.
Bye.